Welcome to another episode of East Meets West on leadership. Today, I have a special friend, and she is Dr. Indira Couch, all the way from Trinidad. Very experienced, very innovative, and high energy individual. Indira is extremely motivated to make a positive impact in the world by helping people create freedom. She believes that many people settle for mediocrity when they deserve greatness, and it is her honor to help you realize your potential so that you can achieve everything you desire and more. She is a catalyst for change who will help you to work smarter, not harder. She is known for delivering compelling results, is insightful, and idealist business solution. She is known as a transformational leader. India is innovative, commercially driven, and has demonstrated unflagging enthusiasm. And as I said, she is high energy. Now, Indy, when you meet her, you will see what I'm speaking about. But Indy is also a business owner and as a woman in business, being exposed to many different worldviews and worked in many countries, Indy comes with a wealth of knowledge to help us. And today we're going to learn from her some of her experiences as a leader, and especially as a woman in these positions. And I'm sure that we're going to get a lot of value out of her as she speaks today about women in leadership. So help me to welcome Indira. Thank you, Dr. Indira, to join us today. We're looking forward to having fun and also, learning from you what value also you'll be adding to us. We appreciate. So welcome.
Thank you, Shanti. Shanti, thank you so much. It's my great honor and privilege to be able to invest some time with you today. Thank you for inviting me to share with your audience. So I'm looking forward to having this nice little fireside chat, I would say.
Definitely. We look forward to it too. So, indeed, tell us, you know, women, we see so many, women now taking up roles and, this kind of the way life was before, I would say, in the past is totally different comparing to what's happening now in our world. And we've learned even through Darren Hardy that the women will rule the world as we are seeing unfolded. And we really, really would like to hear more on your perspective of women in leadership, and any pointers that you have that you can help some of the women also that are stepping into roles now that it's maybe new for them. It's something not cultural for them. Different aspect might be going on in their heads, but what are some of your viewpoints on this?
Well, first of all, Shanti, let me say I'm in Trinidad and Tobago, and you're right there in Guyana. And so, first of all, my journey, nobody else has walked my journey but me. So I'm a Caribbean woman like yourself, but I come from, family background with certain kinds of values and, the way that I was brought up. Being in the Caribbean and then having traveled outside of the Caribbean. So I lived in the UK for 10 years, I lived in Jamaica for 21 years, and then having to come back into my own country. And having to come back into my own country where a lot has changed, but a lot has remained the same. Now, when I think about my journey, my Caribbean journey, I first of my family, I'm the first child, and so of course I'm a girl, and there's certain things that are expected of women in society because of course we all have these filters culturally. And I remember that my grandparents, my grandmother in particular, was a very strong woman, very smart woman, but she always kind of knew she had a place. Like she didn't want she couldn't really lead, but she was leading. Very powerful woman, and she made sure that all of her daughters were sent abroad to study. And I'm talking about some of my aunt, unfortunately, who just passed, she was a doctor. She was 89.
Mm-hmm.
She was sent on a boat when she was 15 years old to India to study medicine with other men. So it was a very interesting time that she was a woman going away on a boat to India to study medicine. Now, of course, she comes back to Trinidad. She's a doctor. But again, I always found it a bit kind of interesting to observe it, not in a critical kind of way, but us as women, we're educated, our families want us to be educated, but then the kinds of cultural nuances about, oh, you mustn't be this and you can't lead, and what's going to happen to your children, and the role the mother must play with the children, etc. So I always kind of struggled with this, I have to be honest with you. And even when I started my business in Jamaica, I remember it being a real big issue for me because I wanted to lead, I wanted to run my business, but I had two young children, and I was like afraid. I was like, oh my God, they're gonna like end up on drugs and all kind, because of course the kind of thoughts that I had, that the things I would hear my family say, oh, the mother has to be there and whatever. Until I realized, I mean, I had a lot of head trash, okay? Until I realized, but hang on, my children need love. They need people around them who are like them. They need someone whose values align with mine and ours, my husband and myself. So what I did is I made sure that I had really good support. And that was what, because I didn't have my parents or family in Jamaica. And
Mm-hmm.
so I had to find really good, support in terms of help, in terms of nannies, people who really knew and, could understand what was, I would, of course I was involved, but I also made sure that when I did spend my time with my children, it was them and me. And
Mm-hmm.
I was able to influence them in terms of their thinking. You see, a lot of parents, I realized, and I was like, my parents, I love my parents dearly. They're fantastic people, but they do a lot of things. They do things for us, which is great. But I wanted to be able to support my children on the journey of being the best versions of themselves. So being able, I always tell them, they hear me say this, they go, oh my God, mom, you don't have to keep saying it. But I want them to be able to make good decisions, because it is the quality of decisions and the choices they make in their lives that would ultimately impact their actions and their results. So my journey as a business owner and as a mom was really based on what I had observed around me and what I wanted to make sure that I didn't do. So I'm not one of those, you would know, I'm not a helicopter mom. I don't do things for my kids. Of course, yes, if I have to cook meals and stuff for them, but I'm not kind of always like checking on them. Even the teachers at like my son's school, they'll be like, you need to tell so and so and so, and I'll be like, well, just tell him yourself because you don't need to tell me. In fact, I'm not even on some of the chats because I'm like, just tell him, have a conversation with him, because you
Yep.
will. And I encourage my children to raise their hand and ask for help. You don't understand something, go to the teacher and say, I don't understand, help me. Because a lot of the time in our society, the way we bring up our children is like, oh, you have to do everything alone, you mustn't ask anybody for help. No, you must be able to know man is an island. We've heard this. We
Yep.
must be able to know when to raise our hand and say, I need some
Mm-hmm.
help. Like me, I need a personal trainer. I cannot do this alone. I need support from, in terms of my housekeeping and my nanny for my children, etc. So I made sure I found really good help.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that to me was a really important part of my journey and how I've grown. And to be able to, I mean, it doesn't mean I have my moments when I think, oh my gosh, maybe I really just need to, because some days you feel whatever, exhausted, frustrated because you're juggling the parenting thing, the mom thing,
Yes.
the relationship thing, the wife thing, the friend thing, the daughter thing, the niece thing, and you feel like, oh my God, something, has to give, because when you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to something else,
Yep.
right?
Definitely.
So when you're juggling all these glass balls, sometimes you feel like, okay, but then you get really clear on where am I spending my time and energy and effort. And knowing that when I do spend my time with my children, I'm giving them my full attention, but it's not about, you know, cooking for them. It may be cooking with them. Hey, come and cook with me. Let's learn something. Let's have a chat. Let's talk. Let's see what's going on. We have some fun together. We do great things together. So they have great memories as well, you know?
Yeah, so indeed, I like that you touch on the point of as women in the home, being mothers, especially here. And, a culture has shaped many of us in how we raise our kids. We are seeing a different generation indeed come in. One would come in with a lot of entitlement because you see that parents, they don't want what they've been through, that their kids go through it, and at the same time they're not seeing that that also can have a negative effect on their kids. And what are they shaping into? Because we might be thinking we're doing something really good, by giving them everything they ask for, doing everything for them. And because we might not have had that, like a typical example to it's like for me, my mom, first when you're younger, yes, they will walk you to school, or take you to school and come back for you and all of that. And like for me, when we got our kids, we were so protective that I make sure I in fact, what happened to me when my first daughter was born, and when she was ready to turn out to school, in her 3 years old. Yeah, she started nursery. And you know what I end up doing? I actually end up resigning from my job because I wouldn't have been able to take her to school and then pick her up at lunch and take her home and stuff like that. And so I end up resigning and take up a job that would have allowed me to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And because I
Yeah.
didn't trust anyone to be, taking my daughter,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
it was so much emotional things too as women that we go through. But then as they grew, it's indeed as you start learning that there's time when you need to let go and let them do certain things as they age, teaching them to do this, allowing them to go and start something, trusting them and
Yeah.
allow them to fail and learn for themselves. Those are things I think many of our parents these days are not allowing their kids to
Yeah.
do. And then we end up in a society here now where the kids them are just entitled, that they want this and they demand this, and because that's what they're accustomed to. And so when they come into a workplace, it's that's what they are expecting. If I ask for this, I'll get this.
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting that you touch on that part as women. How we are leading in our own homes is so
Yeah.
important. The mindset that we are building a next team at home, I would say.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just to touch on that point, Shanti. So I think I have chosen a life which is leading a business, leading my family as a mom. And there are some women who choose because that is what they want, and they that is their choice. I'm very much about choice. So I have some friends, and so you needed to resign because it didn't suit your particular situation with your children. That's fantastic because that's what you needed to do because your commitment is your children, right? And there's some people who do that, and I think that's great. For me, I just wanted something else because I've always had a feeling of wanting to be able to give back, to be able to inspire others to action, to be more, to do more, to have more. And it what fills me as well as my family. I love my family and my children, but it fills me and it helps me to be able to fill back to them. um so it's again just as a woman being able to be okay with that. So, and that was a big BFO for me, a blind flashing of the obvious, for those of you not familiar with the term, like a light bulb moment, because I had to say, hey, actually, it's okay to want to have a career. It's okay to want to have both. What's wrong with that? And I had to get comfortable with that. But another thing I wanted to touch on too is, I think I came from a society, it's still this society. We come from societies where it's a lot of people about thinking about what will people say? How is
Mm-hmm.
it gonna look? Right? And it's just the way it is. How is it gonna look? Who's gonna say? What gonna say? What two and two going to say? And quite frankly, I mean, always been a bit independent. Let's just say, people who knew me even from school, they would say, "Oh, Indira, she's always like talk." Apparently, I don't remember this, but my mom would say she'd come to school and the girls were all surrounding me, and I was talking because I had some particular thing about something, or. But I was never really a conformist per se. I always kind of thought about things being different. Like, why did it have to be done this way? Which was, of course, not really at that my age and stage of life. But of course, when I went to the UK, I had a great opportunity to go to the United Kingdom to study, where I was, hey, it's okay. I can be who I'd like because I'm embraced. Nobody's judging you. Nobody's well, not nobody, but at university, in a different, you could people were allowed to kind of feel that they could express themselves. And it was a journey of me just feeling really comfortable in my own skin and
Mm-hmm.
being comfortable with really not caring what people thought, because I knew what was good and true and honest and kind, growing obviously to understand myself and who I wanted to become. And then going to Jamaica, where I always joke about, I said nobody knew me from a jackfruit. That's what Jamaicans say when they say, nobody know you from a jackfruit. And then building my life there.
Mm-hmm.
And so getting to know people and building relationships, and then having a really great, um, you know, group of friends and colleagues and professionals who know me, like me, and trust me. But it did take a lot of being okay with who I am and being okay that I don't really care what people think about me, because I'm okay. And and we come from a society too where, people push their children to be academic and to do this, and who's finished their degree 2 years ahead of who, and who was a millionaire at 40 and who was not, and all these fixed equations. And what I tell my children is that there are no fixed equations, not in life, because
Mm-hmm.
you can have a new page every day in your life if you want. Just because others are doing it doesn't mean that you have to do it. So that's FOMO, that people, oh, I need to, but that's great. I'm so happy if your child finished university 3 years ahead of they were supposed to finish, and I'm really happy for you. But it's okay if the others, if mine aren't. Everybody has their own journey. And to me, I think that's a really important part of being okay, and as a woman being okay as well with how you want to bring up your children. So my children are very, very, very conscious. They're very open-minded. They're not judgmental, because we don't have those discussions. We don't talk about people. We don't say things. Our conversations are about ideas, or about how we could learn, games,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. We keep our conversations a lot more about that. So again, of course, it's a journey, because then you end up in a very, interesting place where, because not everybody's like me. And of course, it can be, I have to find the people who are like me to align to, my kind of values. And so,
Yeah, I like that. Indeed, that many, especially women, I think, maybe some men go through this too, but it is a lot that as women, we keep thinking that, okay, what would my family think of me if, I go take up a job and the kids, them are still young. And I know we all go through that. I don't know,
mm-hmm,
you know, it's for different culture, it might be a little different. That it's common for them to step into work and what's not. While in some culture, is that the women is known that for being housewives, and that that's your job and that's your role. And I think that's how, some kind of a conditioning had happened from before. And so, like for me, there were so many mistakes I think I've made when I got married. And one of it is that when we got married and then our kids came along, we said that the kids comes first. Everything the kids, it's going to be about them now and not about us. And I think that was a mistake that I made as as a wife and as a mother, because if your relationship too with your spouse is not strong, then how are you going to hold your marriage together? And so
Mm-hmm.
it was, the shift in, and there's so many learnings that, mistakes that I would have made. And getting the kids them now to like refocus. And yes, the kids are important, they're number one, they're priority, yes, in your life. But then, your marriage is there. If this is strong, then it's easy to bring the kids them up. And we're seeing so many homes are breaking. There are so many single parents now, which also is causing a next effect in the society, because now those single parents or either grandparents are raising the kids, and then the
Yeah.
kids are coming up now and they don't know how to be parents because they weren't taught, they didn't see the example of that. But so now,
Yeah.
as coming back to my point, as you said, is as women, how do we believe in ourselves that it's okay, as you said, that give ourselves permission, that it's okay to go and get a job. It's okay to pursue your dreams. And I would say the people that are gonna be against you are gonna be the ones closest to you.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, and that's a really good point you make in terms of how it's like, okay, so we do this in businesses, right? You have a team alignment because we know in order to have a high performing team, your team must be aligned, right? So the same in your marriage and in same in terms of expectations. So for example, when I got married, my husband has always been extremely supportive. He was never one of those persons who would stop me from doing anything. He was never, you want to do this, whatever. I mean, he's not kind of like there on top of me, hovering over me, but just supportive. In other words, like not saying no or not saying you can't do this or having a fight about it. Understanding that there were specific things that I wanted to do and he wanted to do, and we supported each other on those things. Now, as it pertains to the children and how we raised them, we were very much aligned on that. And you know how some people, I remember, I can't even remember somewhere somebody saying about, oh, the parents have to be a good cop and a bad cop. You hear that thing,
Yes,
right? That is such
balance it.
rubbish. That is such rubbish. Even in a leadership team, that is such rubbish. Because no way, the both parents have to be on the same page. That is how it works. That's how you get, you know, that's just how it is. It's success. It's about how we create and sustain high performing teams. Everybody must know what's on the go all the time. And if I say something and my husband and I are aligned because our values are very clear about how we do things and in terms of the culture of our family. So, I think that's why before you decide to have children, it's so important in any relationship to have clarity. Just in any decision you're making, how are we going to do things? How is it going to work? And just having those kinds of discussions, I think are important. I never had the discussions, to be honest with you, but I always knew my husband was always very supportive. So when we came up with the ideas, we would kind of work through things together. But it's alignment, right? And it's just like a team, just having
Yeah.
that alignment.
In the
So,
you touched on something that I'm not sure many women are again comfortable in speaking, about what goes on in their homes. I really appreciate your realness in bringing, but indeed, the husband plays a part too in how does he support mentally, maybe not physically doing something per se, but some husbands are actually behind their wife, and whatever they're doing, they're there supporting, they're on site. And I see few men who does this with their wives, and I really admire that. And so indeed, as husbands too, that I saw some husband also who are jealous of their wives, and those who cannot understand and maybe even keep up with their wives in what they're doing. And so you end up having this kind of conflict now between the two, because the wife choose to maybe improve themselves by education wise, and they don't want to. Maybe the wife wants to travel and they don't want to. Maybe the
Mm-hmm.
wife wants to get into business, or even politics, or something, or something out of this husband's reach,
Yeah.
and he just can't understand. And so he's not supportive, and so you have this kind of mental battle now as a woman. You have to also keep the marriage going, you have to keep the kids going, and then with the mental aspect of dealing with, it's not okay with my husband, but this is my dreams, these are the things I
Yeah.
want to pursue. And so I am really, if your husband is listening to this, that I must commend him, that he's standing by you, and that is the important part of that. People must understand that women are also human beings. They also have dreams, and they also have goals of things
Well,
they want to
Shanti, I will say though that when you say yes to one thing, you say no to something else, right? You'll always hear me say that. I speak to you enough to know that you'd hear me say that. And
Mhm.
I'll also say that relationships are about win-win. So whilst he has been extremely supportive and it's great, I'm also extremely supportive to him
Yep.
because he has certain things and he loves to sail, for example, and he loves to be on the ocean. So when I was first married to him in the early days before the children, I used to race. That's why I have all this hyperpigmentation on my face now. I was burnt to crisp. I would race with him. I would sail with him. I would support. I mean, I was always there. And I
Hmm.
love the ocean and so now, but I also encourage him and I support him to do what he wants to do. So it's about win-win because I can't have it all, but I know what we know that anything in a team, in a organization, in a
Exactly.
business, it's about but it's about me putting my personal agenda behind and for the team agenda. What does the team need? Right? The team needs everybody to have a little bit of something. So what does my husband need? What do I need? What my daughter needs? What my son needs? Everybody. But the other thing too is I would say that for women who have that, experience, and for the men of, and by the way, it's not just women because it's in any
Exactly.
relationship,
Because
right? Where there is a bit of jealousy. I was actually talking to my daughter about that today. When people are jealous, jealousy is, I mean, usually is as a result of something that they feel that that person has that they don't have.
Mhm.
Think about it. I don't have that. That person has that. I'm jealous of that person. And it's kind of what I call a scarcity thinking type of thinking, which is to say that always looking at what someone else has more than me. Right now, again, there's no judgment here. There's no right or wrong. It's just how some people feel. And what I would urge people who feel that to do is to just think about, what is it? Because I could have that too if I wanted, but I've chosen not to. But
Exactly.
if, in other words, I'm being okay with not choosing it and coming back to a place of gratitude, being that so many of us, I mean, and you see this today, we started the conversation with children having this instant gratification because or this life that we're living now, there's a fear of missing out, the FOMO. I don't have that. That person has that. Look at social media. Oh my God, look at that amazing life she's living, right? But yeah, we see it. I don't do social media, but I hear, about it. Um, when really and truly, the only way we can quell that is by being in a place of gratitude. We have so much to be grateful for, but we're always just busy looking for the limelight, of things,
Yep.
right? So if I fill my cup, just like you, because I fill my cup by helping people to transform and, doing the work that I love, my husband knows that fills my cup. and I fill his cup with, his sailing and encouraging him and the stuff that he loves to do and connecting with people to do it and do trips and whatever. But also, if I ever feel anything, I mean, I'm not a jealous type of person. And I think it's because I have always come from a place of gratitude. And I don't feel like there's a fear that somebody's going to take something away from me, or there's going to be a loss or something. And I kind of just dig deep. I dig deep and think, where is this coming from?
Mm-hmm.
So for, people out there who may have those kinds of feelings, don't dispel the feelings. Just dig a little deep and think, well, why am I feeling that? What is the fear in them? I'm afraid of losing this person, or I'm afraid that this person is not going to want to be with me because I'm not what. I mean, and it's all, of course, stories in people's heads, right?
Yep.
Because there's no indication that this person is gonna do anything, but it's just an affair, and that person has to be able to say, but I have to be so grateful because this person is in my life right now and they're there with me and they want to be with me, and maybe some self-esteem issues that person, so it's quite a deep process. I'm not a psychologist or a trained one, so but I think I've tried to figure a lot of this out along the way. So I think
But indeed, what you're saying, having the balance, yes, is one. So it's not. I know we're talking about women here, but indeed, it's not that you're coming across as some kind of bully or something, your way or the highway kind of mentality. But indeed, how do you come together to come to an understanding, maybe some sort of compromise in some areas, and but indeed supporting each other in
yes,
whatever dreams and goals that each one have, which might be totally different, and but how can you just step into their shoes and their role and just be there for them too in whatever way. And so I think if we understand that we are all meant to do something, right? And your something might not be my something, or your husband is different roles, right? His
mm,
purpose is gonna be different. Some people's purpose kind of align in doing the same thing, so they come together and do it as husband and wives. But some are just totally different, and that's
yeah,
okay. And but it's, yes, indeed, how you support each other, not a one side
yeah,
thing. And as a wife or as a husband, indeed, the mindset, oh my, it's interesting because we get fueled, we get, or should I say, bombarded with so many different things that we're seeing on social media. Our brains now get exposed to so many things, and indeed, what are the things you might be feeding your mind that is causing you to be jealous, causing you to be thinking in some kind of way that
yeah,
was not there before, and you don't even know where that started to come from. And so it's important that our mental health, especially as husband, as wife, especially, that we think what are where those thoughts are coming from, as you said, and dive deeper to deal with them. And if you need help, if it's so bad that it's causing your relationship with your spouse to be damaged, then you need to look at, do you need to get external help? Who can you go to that can help you to see a different perspective of this here, and be
yeah,
open to hearing from someone? Because many men, and maybe some women too, have this kind of macho thing. I know everything, I know what I'm feeling, and I'm
yeah,
right, and I don't need nobody to tell me this or tell me that. But sometimes it's opening up to hear a different perspective, because you might be on your blindfold only seeing things one way, and
yeah,
so someone can expand your thinking and what's not, and open you up to see what you're thinking is really not fruitful, or it's not helping the situation. And indeed, what do you want to do about it? I
yeah,
do know that there are some marriages actually ended when they do figure out that they don't want, either don't want to support each other anymore or whatever. But I do believe if you seek help, it will avoid going to that extreme of something like that
mm,
happening. Don't
yeah,
go allow it to get so bad that you've drifted so far apart.
Yeah, absolutely. Shanti, the journey of leading and in a role that is not a traditionally a leading, we see a lot of women in men's roles nowadays. There's a lot of things that have changed, um and when I look at some of those women who I would say, like, I've looked at them and think, oh, how they're so successful. They've also had very interesting journeys, like, one of the persons I follow is Ariana Huffington, right? And I mean, her marriage didn't work out, but her husband and her maintain a very good relationship now outside of the divorce. So because they wanted to make sure the children did not get affected. And in other words, I think the other thing that could be deemed to be a bit negative is that just because you break up, it doesn't mean that it's the end of that people just sometimes the reality is sometimes people do grow apart and they may not be able to stick it out together, and that's okay, but it's just how you do it for the benefit of the children and the benefit of the relationship. And Ariana Huffington is one of those persons, and other, females, when I look at, the world today, again, I'm named after Indira Gandhi. She was a prime minister, first female prime minister in the world. And she also had a very strong, history in terms of her family, the Gandhi family. So, and came and was, developed, and so, but also had a lot of support, so there's a lot of common threads: support, the family's there, leading, making tough decisions, but she was also a leader, but a mom as well as a wife. But she had a lot of support, and was aligned as well, of course, in terms of her relationship, and so in her life, because that was what was kind of expected of her in a way.
Yep. In the academy, there's so many things about women in leadership that we can talk about.
I know we could go on
Some
forever.
aspects we haven't even touched on as yet, in how women also, I put it, the women in a man's world, because for me, honestly, coming through high school, into university, into the work environment, it's a lot of men pretty much in many of these roles. So being a woman around and playing on the same ball field, I would say, with them is a whole total different mindset, and learning and also standing up in when you need to stand up, and when you need to talk. But indeed,
Yeah,
we could go on and talk about this more
I
and more,
know,
and I'm sure
for
that
sure.
you will be invited again for us to continue this discussion. But I know we took it from as wives and as parents, as women in these roles, and how you can impact your kids, your life, especially as a woman. How standing up for your dreams too, of the things that you were made to do on this earth here. And I always encourage women not, don't take all those skills and I would say, the blessings and every aspect that you were born with to do into your grave, because you are made to do something great. And I want to encourage the women that are listening here, even the men too, that what you're made to do, don't shelf it or hide it because you want to maybe let someone else have the limelight or something like that, or so you just cover. But how to come together and make it happen, so that you don't be, as Indy says, a win-win situation, so it's not become where you have a win and you lose. So how do you come together and make it a win-win? That will be really amazing, that you can live your purpose as a wife, as a mother, or even if you're single or whatever, that you are living your dreams, believing in yourself, and believing that you can do whatever it is that you were made to do. So developing the right mindset too has a lot to do with, as women, especially in different roles here. So
Yeah,
Indy, any
Paul.
closing remarks before we close the program today? and you come on next time.
Well, I mean, just to kind of round up what you said at the end there, Shanti, it actually does. It is the mindset. It's the mental game, and understanding where there's certain behaviors that we may have practiced or certain habits that we would have practiced because those would have kept us safe, those would have gotten us to a particular place in our lives, and recognizing that the persons that we need to become, it's about us, first of all, recognizing those behaviors that get in our way or how we get in our way, and, getting that mindset, that mental game to say, okay, if I have to make the change, which I do have to make the change, that when I change the way I look at things, the things I look at change.
Yes,
So just changing our perspective, changing the way we see things, changing the way we see the world. Yeah, it's all starts with this. All right.
definitely. Put on a
All
different
right.
lens and
A
see
different
differently.
lens. See it differently. Yeah. Even just start looking at your partners, your children, the world differently instead of how we currently look at it. So, yeah.
Definitely. Indeed.
All
Thank you
right.
so much for joining us today and
You're
for your
welcome. Thanks you.
wisdom
Thanks
and the
for having me.
value you have added to all of us here today. Thank you so much. So, we will see you in the next program. And this was East Meets West, and we'll see you next week. Take care.
Bye. Bye, everyone.